So, last week's roleplay did surprisingly well. Got a lot of positive feedback from that, and because of that I wanted to kind of do a follow-up video. And in the comments, in the description of that video, I had sort of asked, like, hey, let me know how you think I did on the whole palm reading and fortune-telling aspect, and obviously I wasn't actually reading your guys' palms, although I did have a stand-in to sort of sit behind the camera so I could look at his palm and feel like I was actually doing it, which I think helped a lot from my perspective. But today I am going to talk about how psychics and fortune tellers like that work. Now, so just a forewarning, this can kind of get to be a heated subject, particularly because there are people, and I am not one of them, who legitimately believe that astrology and palm reading and other forms of divination are legitimate. And for those of you who believe that and who want to sort of learn that, that's awesome. There are all sorts of places on the internet where you can learn. I believe palm reading is one of the most simple. I kind of picked it up as a kid when I got into Harry Potter and wanted to learn how to do divination like Professor Trelawney, so I learned about palm reading back then, but so that's totally a thing you can do. This is not the video for that. So if you are one of those people who's seen, say, Sylvia Browne on TV and has said, oh my god, I want to learn how to do that, this is not the video for you. You might as well just turn it off and go to something else right now. And if you haven't seen the palm reading roleplay I did last week, I'll provide a link down below. But for those of you who have, again, maybe seen Sylvia Browne or someone else on TV and said, you know, I don't think that's legitimate, but I don't know how she does that either. The skeptics who want to learn more, this is where I'm going to come in and teach you about a little bit about the psychology of that sort of thing, because I find it fascinating, and I kind of love that I can use the psychology that I've learned in, say, doing the roleplay that I did for you last week. Because, like, for example, even the person I had behind the camera, whose hand I was looking at as I was reading out all those statements, told me afterwards that he felt like those statements were chosen just for him. And I'm sure there are many of you who watched the video who thought, oh, this feels like me, this feels like it's describing me. How does that work, you know? And I'm gonna talk a little bit about that. So, the effect that I sort of took advantage of is called, depending on who you ask, either the Forer effect or the Barnum effect. The name the Barnum effect is a little bit more popularized because it comes from P.T. Barnum, who, those of you who find that name familiar, he's the founder of the Barnum and Bailey Circus Act way back in a long time ago. Not only was, you know, he would say, for example, we've got something for everyone, which is kind of how the effect works, in a sense. But more than running a circus, P.T. Barnum was also a notorious hoaxer, where, even though he did say we've got something for everyone, he was also known for saying there's a sucker born every minute. So, on top of having your typical circus act, he would have oddities, and this is a thing that you hear about a lot from the late 1800s, early 1900s kind of era. The same era of, like, the freak shows and stuff like that, when there's just strange things. Like, the most famous, I believe, is the Fiji mermaid, which was said, oh, look, we have an actual mermaid here. And, you know, if you pay money, you can come behind the glass and you can, or behind the curtain, and see this thing that we've captured. And of course it actually turned out to be a sort of a young monkey on the top half, which was sewn onto a large fish on the bottom half. So obviously not actually a mermaid, but by piecing bits together and by obscuring it just enough, you could come out, some people would come out of it feeling like, oh my god, that's like a big mermaid. Or some people, by the time they actually see it and see that it's not actually a mermaid, they've already paid money. So the name psychologists use for this effect is called, and it's not the Fiji mermaid effect. I'll go into details about what the actual effect is in a bit, but it's called the Forer effect because the psychologist who did a study that sort of exemplified this effect was named Bertram Forer, and he was a psychologist and a professor. And so basically the effect is that people tend to rate higher, accuracy-wise, vague descriptions that seem like they're tailored towards them but are actually pretty vague enough that they can sort of apply to almost anyone. And so astrology uses this, a lot of fortune-telling uses this, and actually certain types of personality tests also use this. So I know, like, one of the most well-known personality tests is Myers-Briggs. Next time you read your Myers-Briggs type, look more closely at how many of those things you feel like actually describe you and how many of them are vague. Not saying that all Myers-Briggs is completely inaccurate, but any sort of personality test result is going to have a little bit of this involved. Even, silly little quizzes that you take online saying, what element are you? And it tells you, oh, you're, fire, and it will have vague statements like you're very passionate, which is like something that actually applies to a lot of people, not just you specifically. So anyway, the psychologist this was named after, Bertram Forer, did a pretty well-known study where he did the study on his students, and he told them that they were going to take a test, and then they would receive little vignettes, just personalized vignettes based on their exact results. And when they were given these, they read them over, and he asked them to rate them on a scale of 0 to 5, and on how accurate they were. And on average, they were rated 4.25, so that's almost a 5. And then he revealed that everyone was given the same exact vignette, which was based on excerpts from an astrology book. And if you look online, there's a list of all of the statements that he made as part of this vignette. I want to say there were a little over 10, but there are a couple, and I have my script that I used yesterday, and a couple of them that I used in the script yesterday, actually. And I just sort of bent it to, like in the role play, not yesterday, last week, in the role play, I talked about the different lines on the palm, and so that I actually used the same sort of information that palm readers use, where this line is the lifeline, and like, you can see it pretty well on my palm, so like, the lifeline, the fate line, the headline, and the heart line, and those are the main 4 lines that you read. And I sort of took each bit and adjusted it to what they say each line is about. So again, the heart line is about relationships, so any bit from the vignette about relationships, I told them, oh, I'm reading your heart line, and this is what it tells me. And I also came up with quite a few of my own just based on what I read, but like one example that was used in the Four Effect experiment was you have the need to be liked and admired. You have the tendency to be critical of yourself. There's that you seem, very secure on the outside, but are far more worried and insecure on the inside. And yeah, you can see how these would be, if you're given a lot of these, it feels like it's you, but of course, everyone tries to seem less worried and insecure than they actually are, or you enjoy being in the company of others but need time to yourself sometimes. This is something that you can consider to be true whether you're an introvert or an extrovert, So someone who's more extroverted can say, oh yeah, I do enjoy being around others, and sometimes I do need time to myself, even if it's just, oh, I need time to myself because I need to sleep, or I need to take a long shower, or something like that. And an introvert would say, oh yeah, I do actually, even though I enjoy being around others, I do really like having time to myself, so those are a bit extreme examples, but you can see how a variety of people would respond positively to these statements. And you have some aspirations, but they're not all realistic, because especially in, a more Western culture, we're taught to dream and you can do anything, and we have these big wild dreams that we want to chase, and everyone has some idea of, a thing that they really want that they may never get. That's unrealistic, Little kids from a young age are taught to want to be astronauts and firefighters and all these awesome things. One that I found funny was, and this is a statement that I used and that I took straight from his experiment, but you are an independent thinker, you don't blindly accept what other people say, which I found really funny considering this sort of effect is sort of proving people to be, I guess, less independent thinkers than they think they are, but everyone likes to think they are more than they are, so it's a little bit tricky. There's another one that I remember, which almost felt too vague to me, so I didn't include it, but the statement of you have some personality flaws, but make up for them with your strengths, stuff like that. So, let's see, and another study that he did later took MMPI, so this is a famous personality test, gave out this test to a whole bunch of students, and then upon giving them the results, gave them the actual results, and then also sort of fake results, which was sort of made, developed in the same way that these vignettes were made from the previous experiment, and were told them to guess which one was their actual results, and about 59-60% guessed that the fake results were the actual results, probably because they were specifically worded in such a way that they appealed to them more and, felt like, oh yeah, this is more me, so this has to be the real results, So, 3 statements can sort of be made on how to make this work. So firstly, you have to believe it is individualized, which is probably why people who, for example, watch the role play wouldn't have believed, oh, this is so true, this is so me, because obviously everyone's watching the same video. Again, I'm not actually reading your specific poem. Secondly, is you have to believe in the authority of the evaluator. And again, many people who watched that video had never watched a video of mine before, so they wouldn't know a thing about me, they have no reason to believe in my authority, but these things, for example, both apply to the Forer experiments, where, he told them that he was taking each person's individual test results, so they felt like it was individualized because, they had taken a test. And believing in the authority, well, he was their professor. He was a pretty well-known psychologist as well, so of course they're going to believe in his authority. And then also containing mostly positive traits. So you can notice, like, even certain, like, there are a few that have sort of negative tint to them, but they are backed up with positivity. So they'll say you have some strong aspirations, but not all are realistic. So maybe the fact that your aspirations aren't realistic is thought to be sort of negative, but it's backed up with them saying you do have strong aspirations, you have goals and dreams, and that's very positive. Or they'll say you have the tendency to be critical of yourself, but you also, need to be, you like being liked and admired. Or I guess that's not as good of an example, but like, oh, you seem very sure of yourself on the outside, but are more worried and insecure on the inside. So that tells you, like, you know you're more worried and insecure on the inside, but it's telling you that you don't come across as worried and insecure as you are, which to a lot of people might say, oh, I'm, good at sort of coming across as more confident and secure and all that stuff. And little things sprinkled about, like calling you an independent thinker, or like one that I included was you have an innate sense of who is trustworthy, which is, again, something that I feel like most people feel. Like, they might have some uncertainty with meeting certain people, like, I don't know whether to trust you, but quite often people will meet someone and then feel like, oh, I already know I can trust you, or I already know that I cannot trust you. So, or certain ones that I actually included were a little bit more tailored towards the fact that I know what kinds of people would watch an ASMR video, so saying that you thoroughly enjoy creativity, because of course you do, you're watching an ASMR roleplay, that kind of thing. So yeah, that's the 4 effect. A similar thing, which is used in sort of like psychic mediums, is called cold reading, and this is less related to the roleplay itself, but anything where you are sort of right there in front of the other person and reading them, and especially the mediums who have sort of a large stadium of, an audience, and then they'll make a vague, usually, you'll see they'll say something like, oh, I feel someone in this section over here, someone, I'm feeling a presence, an older man, that's a very typical one, an older man, because most adults, by the time they reach their adult life, have lost, a father or a grandfather or an uncle or even just a close friend who's an older man. And then usually at that point someone in the audience speaks out and says, oh, I lost my dad, or I lost my grandfather. And then the medium will go up to them, and depending on who the person is, will start to draw information. So like, for example, if it's a young woman who says she's lost her father, then they might say, oh, you didn't have that great a relationship with your father, did you? Because that's quite common, especially, going through teenage years and turbulent relationships with parents. And sort of make kind of vague statements like that will apply to a good number of people, and trying to draw information out of them, like, I don't know, I'm feeling anger, and then they would say, oh, I know why he's angry. He's angry because of this, he's angry because he has unfinished business, or he's angry because I did this thing and it's not what he would have wanted. So this works especially well like I said, with an audience, because you can just make vague statements, and then whoever it applies to will sort of raise their hand and say, oh, that's about me. But it can sort of also work one-on-one with, I don't know, even with something as simple as a psychic you're seeing in person, where, again, with a young woman, they might assume, oh, are you, you want to know about your love life, because that's sort of the stereotype where a young woman, especially, you know, teenager, early 20s, wants to know, especially if she's single, you know, a palm reader or a psychic can tell if there's no ring on her hand, then they can assume, oh, you know, you're coming here, maybe you want to know about your love life, maybe you want to know about your future spouse, or, you know, where are you going to find this person? And they can make vague, big statements and, you know, big promises, and then if they don't come true, they say, oh, well, something changed, you know, or they can say, yeah, you did meet your husband at the mall last Saturday, but you just didn't see him. Oh well, you kind of missed the opportunity. Anyway, that's all I have to say about that. I hope you guys got something out of this. I know a lot of my lesson type videos aren't always the most popular, but I thought this would be an interesting sort of thing for you guys to learn. So yeah, let me know what you guys think, and I will see you guys next time.